So we've gone through, haven't we? And we've updated our whole data model. We've understood the technical debt components we've picked up, and we've fixed them, we've remediated them, because that's the important thing, isn't it? But what does that mean? And what's the next step that you have to do? And how do you then quantify everything that's going on, understand success, failure, and next steps? Here we are with our Northeast Parkrun dataset. What's the way we need to go about this, and what's the sensible what is the most sensible approach to really start to get the most out of really what can become quite a complicated and difficult setup, or especially as you expand like this, understanding really what's going on, because we've done an awful lot, haven't we? There's one thing I want to do, and this keeps coming up, and I thought I need to talk about it, and I never do. And I see people talking about it all the time. When you go into the model view in Power BI Desktop, okay, by default, it looks like this, okay, and it just dumps all the tables that are in your model into it, and there's not really much rhyme or reason to it, and it looks a mess, okay? Now, you're stuck with that. There's nothing you can do about it, so leave it, be my advice, okay? Don't worry about it. What you can see, though, is we can go and right-click, and we can go, let's go and create a new one. Just zoom in, yeah. Okay, or we can click plus to create a new one. That's what you want to do. Okay? Create new layouts for them, is what I would always say. So if we go to the event layout, for example, what we've got is we've got quite a simple layout here. And in many ways, actually, if I'm honest, looking at this, I've probably gone a little bit too far with it. But the core thing around this was saying, right, we want to focus on the event entity within here. What links into the event entity, and how do they do that? So have we got everything going the right way? So we've got our temporary local authorities, which is what we use for the local authority map, which is a calculated table. And effectively it's got the local authority name, and it then averages out the latitude and longitude. So we've just got a simple calculated table being built for that. What that does is it makes the maps work. Maps don't like calculations as far as your latitude and longitude go. Don't worry about it. That works really easy, very simple. The next thing we've got is the actual tracked events, which is really the record from our SharePoint list. And remember, our SharePoint list does an awful lot for us. We can see here, it's coming in, it's giving us data for it. What it also does is it actually is used to control and manage the whole ETL process, because it's got GUID information, it's got information related to where files are going to be stored, it's got all sorts of information in it. Very quick, very easy to maintain and manage. It's a very efficient tool. Okay? And then we've actually got the information coming through from the core events. So we've got the events table, got our calendar table, which again, pretty basic. That's available to download the TMDL source for that. And then we've got the records in terms of actually what people have done. This is participation. So this is like the fact table. So we've got the fact table for participation. We've got the fact table for volunteers. And then we've got these separately as additional views. So if we came to look at participation, we can see participation. We can see, oh, right, okay, it's got an age grouping to it. I hadn't realized that before from the other one. It's got people related to it, which, oh, right, okay, this is where the people side comes from. We've got people and events, which is, again, the whole problem that we had, the big technical debt component that we've remediated. That's used there. And then we've got this running membership. So which run club are they in? Which Parkrun has this idea. If you do, 25, well, 10, 25, 50, 100, 250 or 500, you get a different color top. You're in different membership kind of thing. And it's like I'm better than you. Okay. Kind of what people say. Okay? That whole shirt smugness is I believe, the technical term. Then we've got the volunteers. And again, it's very similar, because we've got the idea of this, but I've added a couple of things in just because I was struggling to try and work out for the logic of it. But the idea of using a different table for each one makes sense. If we went through and said, right, we're going to bring in a new table here, and I went to the data tab and said, right, I want to bring in age groupings, okay, just a table to start with. And you could say, do this. And what my advice would be is do a fact table. Start with your fact table, and then bring in the joins that go to the fact table and join them up. and build one around each area like that, maybe only going one at most 2 layers deep in terms of it, and then create a new view for that next layer. Because if you go down that route, you can lay everything out and it makes sense, and you do it in smaller incremental cycles. And because it's smaller and incremental, you can screen grab it and dump it into documentation, because there isn't really a great way of getting this out. And I've seen people talking about, sorry, let me do that now. So if we click on here, left click, we can see we've got this add related tables. Zoom in, come on, okay, add related tables. We can see, just because of the way it is, it's going to add the related tables to it, just participation. All right, we've got participation, so let's go and click on that and let's add the related tables to participation, and we can see it adds the additional tables. So we start with just age grouping, we've got the additional tables. So you can start to build up, so you can always choose to add related tables, which will drop in stuff, and then if you start seeing, well, that doesn't look right, that's a concern for you. Because you've got that way of working though, it's much more efficient, it's easier. And then everything will always automatically come together in here. And if you really want, you can start trying to drag these things around. But what you tend to find is you're going to have big areas like these, where we've got the secondary measures table, our summary selection, these tables, which are all, they're useful tables and we've got them there, but potentially they don't mean anything and aren't adding value to a model. So think through. What's my advice for you? Let's get on with what we've got to do today. So step one, in terms of saying, right, how did that work in terms of the upgrades that we've gone through? Have we captured everything? Have we provided all the information back to our colleagues in terms of success or failure? So this begins by saying, right, let's go to DAX Studio. It starts with DAX Studio this. We're going to connect it to our Power BI model. Okay, click connect. This is going to open up the Power BI model. Step one, this is always what we say to do. Always, 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 no exceptions. Build this up, okay? Make sure you go under the advanced here. Let's zoom in, okay? What we want to do is export metrics. And you can see it says VPAX, export the metrics. You need your VPAX. You have to put your VPAX for everything you do, right? What this does is it actually gives you a record of what's going on in terms of the schema for your Power BI report content for that model. Okay, this is model level data, which is vital for you to be able to understand what's happening. So let's go in, open Excel and have a look and see what that VPAX looks like. Here I am in Excel. So the simple thing is to go open VPAX. It's going to go away, open up a folder. I'm going to say to it, I want to open the Northeast Parkruns one that I've just created, and it's going to say, right, I'm going to go and open it now for you. It's not the quickest, and you'll see bottom right, doing stuff, retrieving data, doing stuff, right? I'm in front of it, so you can't see. Oh. Yeah, there we go, doing stuff, right? You've got to kind of wait for all that to happen. At the end, it'll tell you Vertipaq's read complete. We can then see this is the information about it. So first thing to note is we've got the total size. And this is the total size in bytes, really, of your model. Now, Power BI is about compression. That's one of the things with Power BI. That's part of the power of Power BI, as it were. And in terms of that, what it actually is doing, if we have a look at the VPAX bit, is we can see, right, it's 42. It's actually a lot less in terms of the actual size. So it's 29 as opposed to 29 megabytes as opposed to the 49. So it's, we've lost a lot in terms of the compression, the way it's working. And compression is key to this. It's something which you need to be aware is a big part of how Power BI works, the way it compresses data. And we can then go through from here, if we look along the bottom, and see various instances along the bottom. And I know we've covered VPAX many, many times, and we will keep covering VPAX many, many times, because for all there's lots of different tools now, VPAX is still the best. So Vertipaq Analyzer is still far and away the best, most reliable way to go. So I've just done a major update. What should I be doing? to see what's going on and how well, or what level of success I've achieved in it. So we start with tables. Let's look at the tables and we see things. So we first off is kind of looking at our violations, this is relationship violations that we've got. We've got very small numbers. 5 of these isn't something that is not enough to be too concerned. The interesting is it's 5. It's normally an odd number because it's normally bi-directional, so both sides of the relationship are affected. Being 5 suggests something odd. So we will be worth having a look at it. So we can see there's something going on with age groupings. We can see there's something going on with people. We can see running membership, and we can see volunteer membership. So chances are it's 1 or 2 rogue entries in our people table that are then causing problems. So we've got a rough idea of what's going on with it. That's clear. And the question is, how far do I want to go for it? At a small number like 5, I probably wouldn't do anything. If that number was really high, as I say, I'm going to say beyond 15, it's worth probably having a look at it. At 5, it's kind of one of those where you've got rogue data points. It's worth being aware of them, and if it becomes an issue, the tables that you potentially are going to need to go into a deep dive in. Along here then, you get to this point where we can look and we can see, right, we've got the cardinality of a table. So this is kind of the uniqueness of the table. And one of the things around this is your cardinal tables are going to be, or your high cardinality tables are going to be things like your participation or your fact tables. Sorry for those. So we've got high cardinality in participation and in volunteers, which is roughly what we'd expect. We know in the Northeast, for example, that we've got 1.3 million park runs that we've had. So these are almost every row is unique, is really what this is saying to me. You've then got the size of the table. So actually, in terms of our database size, which is fundamentally what your analytics solution is based on, how big is that relative to it? Okay, so we can see, looking at our total database size of 42, for that, we can see our participation is 22. So yeah, 22 million of the 42 million, or 22.5 million of 42 million is that table. So that table is a really expensive table for us to have. And we can actually then expand participation and see, well, what's going on within participation? We can see items around there to see really what are we talking about. So the interesting here is we've got 1.3 million, but our parkrun ID, which is of course the parkrun, the unique ID of people, only got 130,000 of them. So there's that's almost 10 runs per person, isn't it? Which is great. You see how analysis starts to work, and we're going in and we're just looking at this table. And it's that combination of data which gives us the uniqueness or the fact of something happening. Ross went and ran Jesmond Park Run on the 2nd of August, 2025, for example. That's kind of where we go. And that was event 222. It's all these things tie in together and we can work out what's going on. That's what the fact table is. It's where the various dimensions come together to form a fact. So we've built that. We can see what's going on with it. So if we close this again, let's carry on, because we can expand that further if that becomes a point of interest in the next step. We then see the table size versus the compressed size, which is the data size. So we actually have like the uncompressed and the compressed size. So how efficient is that table? We can see some of them, they're less efficient than others. So we kind of get to that point where, okay, right, I understand. Some of them are very efficient. So we've got here where the running membership, which is 35,000, comes down to 544. So we're actually able to really compress that data set down, that piece of data down. That's what we're looking to do and how we're looking to achieve things. Okay. You've then obviously got them as a percentage of the database size. So if you're coming through and you're saying, right, we've got a really inefficient table that's not working very well, chances are what we do to start that is look at, well, what are the expensive tables, what we would say. So we can see this one, this table here at 25%. What is it? So it's our people. So this is technically it's a dimension table, but what's going on? Why is people such an expensive dimension? So we've got that. So we've got the rough overview. So we'd probably look and say, right, we do need to look at our participation. We do need to look at our people table. So we can then come through to here. and we can look, and this is the columns. We can see at any particular column what's the database size of it. And again, we could choose to sort by that, and this is sorted by column size. And we can see here, participation parkrun ID. And this would be one of the things, it's one of those we always talk, right? You know, you need to avoid unique data in there. This is a join though. So, you know, you don't put text data into a table. So in essence, what we actually have, let's get back to our, so here we are looking at participation, and what we can see straight away in terms of what we need to be getting rid of is going to be these two tables here, these two columns here. And I know these are two that were leftovers from before, from the good old days from before. And the reason for these, it makes perfect sense. So is it possible to change or to see at what run club was that person in on the day? And the reality is it's not really possible, because what we get is the membership club, the volunteer and the run membership at the date of the refresh, not the date of the run, which means, well, if we ever bring in new events or we do things like that, we expand it, it just doesn't make sense. So these need to be dropped, and these just haven't been dropped yet, is the piece that I would say with it. There's no other logic to it. We've then got things like the time, the actual time that the person finished in, and the finish minute, their event their parkrun number, sorry, which is that we don't need anymore. We're gonna get rid of that because we've got the E key and we've got the location ID, which then loops, which is useful to route these things to other things. And as we're looking at some of the measures, they still tie back to using location ID. We want to get to be using something else and try and work out the logic. If we get the logic right, though, we'll be able to get rid of this one, this, and this, once we get those right. So that's the next step. But what you can see here is we've got to this point where we've got a very clear set of guidance on what is going on. And one thing that we do need to do as well is probably work out this note, pull the note out into something else. So we then have, it's your first time at an event, you haven't got a new PB, or it's just a normal run for you, and you have a new PB, are the three options. And then we can put those elsewhere. Again, simple things, but we're already iterating, aren't we? And that iteration has all come from us looking and saying, right, we need to look at the fact table. What are the areas of inefficiency that we have within it? We can look as well at people, because remember, people was another table that we talked about having an issue. We can see we've got here volunteer club, parkrun club, got club here as well. Now club was in the participation table, so potentially we should remove it from participation. The reason for not putting it in participation, the reason for that is these exist in participation because the hope was we could get it at the time. And the reality is that the way the parkrun data set is provided, it's at the point of refresh. So if as we refresh things over time, it causes problems, and the headache would be if we have to scrub an event's details from a particular week, or we bring in a new event, it's going to be out of sync with whatever those are. So it feels like, yeah, the sensible thing is we pull through the latest or the highest volume for those, and the latest one or the latest non-blank for the club membership, so that you've got kind of that. And we just have to take the hit on whatever it is. There's not really a better way of doing it, I think. Even though I would love to come up with one, I haven't yet. Got parkruns completed in terms of actually how many parkruns has this person finished, their name and their parkrun number, okay? Got their gender as well. So we've got the information that's quite already contracted and compact, but we can see there are efficiency savings that we can do. We can remove it from or being duplicated in the participation table to just have the unique records in people table. That makes sense. So if we go back to our Vertipaq Analyzer, we can see, so participant, which is the name of the person, is a really difficult column, but of course it is. That's a text name column. We don't really have a choice. Got these two ID columns, which are the biggest ones that we've got. Again, not really a big surprise there that the top three are kind of ones that we would expect. And as we go down, we find, right, where are those challenges? And what we'll find is if we come down here, if we look at Let's just look at participation and see. We can see here where we have run club. Again, it's not the most difficult of columns, and again, they won't be, but these are ones that we potentially want to just get rid of and trim back. Okay, so it's easy enough. You go through, we work out, right, where do we need to go? And these have already been relatively well optimized through for it. But we know these are the ones that we can definitely improve on. Partitioning, you're not going to find partitioning in this kind of a thing. It's more to do with if you're getting into your database side of things. You can get them with Dataflow Gen 2, I believe, does support partitioning to a certain point. If you go through and you have an incremental refresh dataset, then that affects it. Be warned with partitioning, you can have other issues around in terms of calculations across partitions. So you need to kind of think about what it is you're doing. It's not something to just rush blindly into. Think about your partitioning if you are going to have a partitioning strategy. User hierarchies, we don't have any hierarchies in here. Your relationships, so this is very useful. This will tell you how your relationships are working. So again, if you remember, we had our referential integrity errors, 5 of them, which was kind of, okay, we've got a problem, or not too much of a problem. This is more the important side of it, actually, where what do you have that really is not working as far as your relationships are concerned here? And what we can see is there's not many, if we're being honest. So we've got category to age groupings. So we've got 1,000 that don't match, pretty much of that. So of 130,000, 1,000 potentially don't match. There's an issue with that. That's quite a high percentage. We can see it's missing keys. Okay, so we've got 6 of them that are missing keys, which has led to 995. There's issues to look through. Again, depending on what you're going through, small numbers like this, 9, chances are you aren't going to, it's not going to be terrible. These are likely to be blanks, as I say, looking at what we've got here, category, age groupings, category. So there'll be something different in those age groupings. But we can have a look. We could look through. We could go to participation, which is where we'd want to go, and look at categories. So if we go back to participation, let me go back to our Power BI report. Scroll over here, participation. We have category here. Yeah. So we see we've got this. So these are the WWC. I don't even know what WWC is. We've got these blanks here, which is, again, that's just people who have, for whatever reason, they've chosen to exclude their date of birth or their age from the parkrun dataset. There's not an issue with that. That's fine. As we scroll down, we've got this SM here, which is interesting. As I say, we could go and have a look. We've got in these, we have right at the top here, we have a parkrun ID. So we could go and have a look and check that person's parkrun ID and see what that is. Again, we could see, so we could take that data, we could go and look into it. So if you were in your shop looking at your retail data, which of course this is an analog of, those could be product codes that you do. Well, hang on, that's different. What's that category? That's not one that I was aware of. SM dash, so again, they've been happy to say they're a senior male, but not their specific age that they are in. That might be that case. And we see we've got most of those are SM, or this SM, and the rest are blanks. And we could say, right, let's look, let's exclude the blanks this time. Let's just see what we have now. Yeah, so got this looking at here. We've got what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people in total. Okay, so it's not that huge many. It's not going to really affect anybody's life to know what's going on with that. 6 or 7 people, 8 maybe. Was that roughly what we said there? It is. Okay, and then it's just the number of times they've been and done that. So again, you're starting to see what's going on with these. But knowing that you can come, identify issues, go back to your data, validate where those issues come from, makes it much easier to then go, right, we're going to accept these, we're going to reject these. So these missing keys are where, well, the key that you've got doesn't follow through in there. Blanks are obviously blanks and they don't join, but they're not a missing key. It's a blank. You need to do something else, which is the invalid rows. So we've got clarity now of what's going on. with these. And then we've got here where we've got somebody in from people to the volunteer club. So again, we could go through and see what's happening with that one record. But am I going to get huge business benefit from doing this? Probably not, would be the reality of it. Okay. But being able to do this, knowing what's going on, is vitally important. Okay, so we've got that. So I did mention, didn't I, that Power BI is all about compression. This is where we start to see really what's being compressed, how does it work, what's going on. And we can see kind of your database sizes, your compression sizes. This is where we start to piece it together. We've got data types by columns, we've got encoding. Don't worry too much about those. That's kind of the types of information and how that information is stored or encoded within the database. It's useful from a technical perspective. From an average everyday analyst perspective, you probably aren't going to use it. Okay. But then the last piece, and this is really where documentation is just removed into, do I need to document my Power BI report content? Yes. Do you document a lot of it? In terms of what all the DAX measures are? No. This table, this sheet will give you all that information. But you can see here, this is where it's well worth going through, putting in description information, other items that you can put in here. Within Power BI desktop now, where you can go and put those in, makes it easier for people. But you can see you've got lots of space, you've got big long measures that can be in here. And to be honest, I was initially thinking, oh, Excel probably can't do it all. It can. I've checked multi-page length measures in here. It's able to be extracted successfully from it. So definitely well worth it. Here's our big one, our dump filters measure. We can see that's all nearly, that's the big one. So that's what, 60,000 rows. So it's got down to 64,000. That's the exception. So you can kind of see this is the sort of length that we can really be putting in here. So you're going to get it. If you have to do really long measures, definitely copy them separately into a separate text file. Make sure you include that then in your report or in your documentation that goes through. But you've got everything in there. The way this runs as well is it will give you the information on the measures, the tables, and this. So if we went to the tables, you'd see this is our two field parameter tables that we had. If you remember, we did one for an axis and one for the actual values or the legend items for it. And then here is our local authorities table. So you can see what we do with it. It's not difficult. It's just a summarized measure. We're summarizing local authority with lat and long, with the average of that. So we then puts the dot in the right place, because each local authority will have multiple events. Those multiple events should be within that local authority boundary. If we average that, that should be a point within that local authority boundary as well. It's the logic behind it. Other options would be to go back, use the government data source, and for local authorities, pull that through. That will have a location on it. Potentially, if we were going to do something like that with a GeoJSON file and actually put the shape map in, that might look good. But I was trying to work out, how do we do that? What would we put those on? Again, that's why we've got the field parameter, though, isn't it? That we can pick to say, well, we want to pick it on registered finishers, on this, on that. But we'd probably want to put some kind of a limit on it. We'd probably want to get the latest values from there, wouldn't we? Just what's the latest events? Because that's, again, part of the challenge that we've got to work through with this. And it's not, this is where you go beyond the technical in Power BI, isn't it? So beyond the technical, I've said this a few times. This is now the third week of me saying it, and so far no one's put anything in it. So I'm going to end up having to just decide what I'm going to do with this. I'll tell you one thing I'm definitely going to do with this is get rid of these circles that I've got on the template. I put them there so you could put these in the right place. The reality has been, though, that because of the way it works, it doesn't work properly, or it doesn't look good. If they get slightly out, the whole thing looks really jarring. So I'm just going to remove them from them. It's just easy enough to do. But I think, again, we're coming back to, we get the template set out properly so that these reports look good. What should a tooltip look like for the unique volunteers per year by local authority? We've got this here where we've got the people completing the park runs annually per local authority. I think that we need to look, or I need to figure out what the right way for those to be is. I think that's what, yeah. And this is where it depends on who you're creating your report content for. So we're now at the Northeast level, and this is where it's changed the business value of it. And in terms of, if we looked at the retail example, you would go from, I was just of use to my local store manager to maybe, or to my shift supervisor, to then becoming my store manager, because we've now got the full store report, to then saying, well, we can look at the whole area, which is then your area business manager, to then say, well, we're looking at the country, which is then a country manager, or the whole global product, which is then something which potentially even up at the C-suite. But it all starts with that single spreadsheet. There's no, oh, I need to do this. And this is one of those, like, yes, it's backwards ways of working, but that doesn't make it wrong with it. This is, yeah, 100% this is backwards, but we can replicate an awful lot from what we've got in our big business tool with this, going backwards based on what's already probably being extracted and already pulled. We've simply said, well, let's take that, leverage it, use it. And we can use it because we know this is being used as a source of truth across our organization, which is where one of those problems comes. We're not going to get into it here, but happy to get into it in one of our calls that we'll have. So we understand this is now a higher level report value. So we're saying, right, this is what's happening across my different areas. So I can then say, right, I'm interested in Newcastle, pick Newcastle, and drill down into Newcastle. And then I say, all right, okay, this is Newcastle. I'm interested in Jesmond Dean. Click on Jesmond Dean. And go to Jesmond Dean. I could then say, I'm interested in this specific level here, and go to this specific level here. And we'll deal with these issues here. These are potentially, there's some broken measure that I haven't fixed yet. I thought I had fixed them all. So we've got this. Now we know if we click on see details, we can see here it's to do with a calculated column. So people events highest consecutive does not hold any data. Okay, so we've got, something's not right there. So if we have a look and we say, right, well, let's have a look at people, events, highest consecutive, it's showing an error. Okay, so we've got an error in here. So we've got participation ID, and that's because that's been changed to location ID. Let's just zoom in, make sure we've got location ID, parkrun ID. Yeah. Okay. So highest consecutive, sort descending. Yeah. We've got those values. Okay. So now if we come back, we can see what's going on, who's in here. Right. Now this allows us to understand everything about what's going on within our data set. Because we've got this piece together, we've gone from this idea, haven't we? Shift supervisor, we can go back, store manager, we can go back, potentially area business manager, and again, we can go further up. We then go further up from there, which would take us back to here. Again, I'll check these where these are all going, the navigation points. And this is where it's all become complicated for me, because at this point I'm going, well, I need a better overview for here. And one view, or one option is, and one thing I will do is I will put in a metrics view for this, and actually potentially we could put the metrics on the page, so we'll need to do another background for it. But it feels like there's something else that we need to do, and as well we'll also put in some better narrative here, I think, for it, and we might talk about how the narratives are all built. But any suggestions would be much appreciated for the third time. Let me know down below. So we've got something built now, haven't we? Okay. Being able to use the Vertipaq Analyzer is something you need to learn to do. By understanding the weak points in your model, using the Vertipaq Analyzer, you can work out what do I need to do with the next iteration within here to start to piece it together. You can start to understand elements around in terms of, potentially some technical debt components there. Like we saw, I've got 3 columns in my participation table that shouldn't be there. They made sense to put there, and it's a bit inadvertent now that they haven't been deleted. But the big reason is, well, it's 2% of the database. There's not going to be huge value add from doing that. So I haven't done anything. But that needs to be done at some point. So I will remove them at some point. There's going to be things that you have in your database that are worth removing. And that's why Vertipaq Analyzer is very definitely something I would always say run after every significant update. Run it and keep a copy of that VPAX file separately. You go and you download Vertipaq Analyzer. It's available under the tools section of sqlbi.com. I'll put it up down there. Okay. Under tools, download it. Go back regularly and check for updates that come through. Make sure you've got the Vertipaq Analyzer and DAX Studio as well that will allow you to extract the VPAX. DAX Studio does allow you to analyze a lot of the metrics within it without downloading them, and that's fine while you're going through and doing the work. But when it comes to saying I've now delivered something, download the VPAX. When you go into your corporate change management system, which of course we've all got, haven't we? We need to be change managing things like this. Make sure that you put in, here's the VPAX for it. I've changed it, here is the VPAX. It's a big part of that record of what change information has gone through, what has actually happened, what was delivered. That VPAX has it all. There's other things you can get out, if you can get things like the model.bim file and things like that. Potentially those will help, but your VPAX file, especially if you enclose that within VPAX Analyzer, so in an Excel spreadsheet, makes it easier, but the VPAX file itself is what you need because somebody else can just download it, open it and go, right, I see what's happening now. That's vital. So make sure you do that, okay? If you like what you've seen, don't forget, leave a comment down below, like and subscribe to the channel, continue to support us. Stay safe, take care, ta-da.